Welcome everybody back to Veil of Sound here, and I'm very sure you have all heard or listened to the record of Friday, because when this will be out, the new record by this gentleman here on my site will also already have been out for 2 days. The record is called The World is Still Here, and So Are We. And I'm very, very happy to have Andy Falkous here on the show. McLusky in the house. So thanks for
Ha.
joining.
Well, certainly McLusky in a house.
In a house, yes.
What is the house? I'm not sure. That depends on your viewers, stroke listeners. But yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. I have my two afternoon drinks, a glass of water, and a diet Dr. Pepper because I'm an insane party animal like that.
So you really drink Dr. Pepper? That's one
I
of the
I
things that I never got into.
I'll just drink. I'll drink anything which has a little bit of caffeine in it, but not so much of it. I'm not a hot drinks guy. It's one of the ways I divest from a sense of Englishness generally. Tea to me just is I don't know, it's worse than human sacrifices as some kind of public habit as far as
Okay.
I'm concerned. But yeah, I need to get caffeine from somewhere. I need to wake up. I need energy to deal with the world.
So, first question that we always ask here is, do you have any kind of band shirt merch from your band or any other band that you would like to plug here at the moment? I'll give you a second to think, and I
Plug
will plug,
merch.
yeah,
Sounds
merch from your
cool.
own band or anything else. You can also just name drop a band that you like. I
Yeah,
will drop a band that I love.
Insect
Insect
Arc.
Arc, Berlin, or let's say expatriates from other countries now living in Berlin.
Yeah, there's
Wonderful people.
there's a lot
Um,
of that about, isn't there? There's a lot of people finding their way to Berlin and doing artistic enterprises, isn't there?
yeah, and
Although
it has been
apparently,
for decades.
although apparently it's starting to become as expensive as a London or a Paris or whatever. So maybe that's not going to be continuing. There's one band I own four t-shirts by, and it's a bit of a cheat because they're friends, but they're also a very good band. A band called USA Nails. I don't know if you're
Hmm?
familiar with USA Nails. They're great, and I like the t-shirts. The kind of more florid design wouldn't work on our shirts. There's something quite austere about the kind of artwork which works with McLusky or Future of the Left. But I love their stuff. Oh, and I've got a USA Nails cap here, um, which my daughter likes to put on and run around in. USA Nails Feel Worse. It's good. It's a good record. Thank makes some good. The band Thank. I don't know if you know Thank from Leeds. They're very good. They do some they do some good merch, but frankly, it's not for somebody of my declining years to wear. Usually, I bought a couple of the shirts, and you know, it's all a bit Pokemon hieroglyphic, bright green kind of stuff. And even though I'm partial to an orange, I draw the line at bright green. Doesn't go
So,
with my eyes. Doesn't go with my eyes.
well, sometimes contradictions also are nice on the
Mhm.
ice. Andy, I will give you a few fun questions in this interview because to me, McCluskey has always been a very humorous band. So I'll start off with something that I had to write down to get it right. Did you by now get Carter on the phone to tell him about the MSG you got from digital TV that your old singer is now in prison for sex crimes?
Well, I always had Carter on the phone because Carter referred to a friend of mine, a guy called Michael Carter, who played bass in a Cardiff band called Mohobishobi. And he was that lyric kind of begins with the idea if you ever have a friend where they'll call to arrange to meet up, but then they talk so much on the phone during arranging the meetup that by the time you meet up with them, you've got nothing left to say.
Okay.
He was the guy. He was the guy who did this. He'd get you on the phone. He'd go, "Should we meet in the pub on Thursday?" And you'd go, "Yeah, absolutely." And then
I
he
got
would
to tell you
proceed,
this.
and then he would proceed to exhaust the entire conversation. So by the time you met up on Thursday, you'd just be staring at the football and going, "I guess we should get home." So I did get Carr on the phone. I'm not really in contact with him anymore, but I was walking around Bristol Harbour about 2 years ago, and I saw him. I don't know if he lives in Bristol, walking around with two kids, but I was listening to I was listening to some mixes and I just didn't have time to stop. But I regret that now. I should have stopped and gone, hey, what's going on? But I'm very good. I'm very good at hiding when I don't want to be seen. It's actually one of my special skills. I didn't play a lot of Metal Gear Solid when I was a kid, but I think having observed like flatmates playing or whatever, I think I would have been really good at it.
Okay. Let's get to the new record. The world is still here, and so are we. One can interpret the record in a lot of different ways. Before I say mine, I would like to hear yours.
I'm as much as it sounds like I'm like divesting authority, I'm learning more about what the record is when the people tell me what they think the record is. Because when you're wrapped up in making it, it's just this, even though it took a little while, you're just hurtling through this journey of making sure that it all works and it has a coherence. You don't necessarily know what that coherence is until it's finished. Because we're not a band who sit around discussing the parameters of our songs or what we want from a songs. There's no, there probably is a manifesto or a mission statement on a subconscious level, but the idea of sitting down and making that explicit is just not in our characters. So I kind of know what it is now, I think. But for example, some of the lyrical themes I hadn't even thought about until I was talking to a couple of interviewers, French, of course. It really got, but in all honesty, it was really interesting and illuminating conversations I've had with people at times where you're like, oh yeah, I can see that. I thought I was just throwing language onto a song, but on one level, you can, as the person writing it, you get to a point where you're like, yeah, this makes sense now. It's coherent. But what, like I say, what that actually means is another thing entirely. It's consistent within itself, if that makes sense.
It does, and in a sense, it also, the record reaffirmed something for me that I always thought about McLusky. I always had the feeling that a lot of the lyrics have two things in common. One being a very sarcastic way of looking at the world, and the other was that very often I had the feeling that the lyrics are onomatopoeic, that they're more meant to fit to the sound of what is being played than rather give one single coherent idea.
Yeah, and certainly that was the idea deliberately, just almost rhythmic expressions of personality, as opposed to here's a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Here's a story of a pimple on a pimple.
Yeah, exactly. So that is a question of just getting into language, for example, that and almost deliberately tripping yourself up.
Yeah.
And that's where the fun is. But sometimes when you're doing that, as a person who's spent a lot of time maybe on that song, sometimes no time at all, sometimes songs come out in the time that it takes to listen to them. But sometimes when you're working on, say, the lyrics, it's a question of, it's like when you've got a really good writer, you want to do something which could be maybe border clever, but you don't want to wear that too heavily. You don't want to go around wearing your "I'm pretty fucking clever" badge and go, do you see what I did there?
Yeah.
Because when you see the internal workings of it, it loses its magic. It becomes just becomes an act of showing off. But yeah, I mean, a lot of it is just the love of language. Yeah, lyrically, you're right. A lot of it is rhythmic. A lot of it is finding words which fit, words which don't fit, occasionally using a word which doesn't fit, just to see
to break it up again, right?
To break it up or use that as the start point. Sometimes lyrics come from challenges. Sometimes I sing something just to make the people in rehearsal laugh. Yeah. Or try to make them laugh. And they're a hard audience as well. Jack pretends he doesn't like stuff, and Damien is just a dickhead generally. He's very, very critical about everything, which is why the band works in that situation.
So when you call your bass player a dickhead, and when I see that he wrote for guitar or played for guitar on Way of the Exploding Dickhead, is that the combination there?
That wasn't explicit again, but yeah, I say dickhead. There's a lot of love in that dickhead. You know, you dickhead. Like the Australians use the C word interchangeably with it's an
Yeah,
affectionate term in Australia, or rather, a lot of it is in the tone. You know, if you go, you fucking dickhead, you
yeah, of
probably don't
course.
like the person. But if you
Yeah,
go, I love you, you dickhead,
yeah.
it's
I,
totally different situation. But
but one
yeah,
has to say that is a very British and Australian thing. In America, that's different. But
yeah,
yes, I see that.
yeah.
I see that.
Yeah, you've got to go around with a lot of caveats and asterisks in the States. Although, frankly, the crowds we play, the venues we play, they generally understand enough about where we're coming from. I wouldn't say they're Anglophiles per se, but they know about enough about British culture to not assume that it's all just a facsimile of American culture.
Yeah, and to also assume that it's not all just Downton Abbey, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. It's only 94% Downton Abbey.
last statistics I heard, it was 93.8. But let's not go there.
Okay.
When we talk about Downton Abbey, there is something that I love about the new record, and that is it doesn't have any kind of nostalgia. It sounds straight like McLusky, but it doesn't sound like any prolonged elongation of, for example, the difference between you and me.
Hmm.
It's very much its very own thing. Was that in any way important for you not to sound as if those 20 years in between, or 21 years, however we want to call it, counted, hadn't happened?
Yeah, I mean, you don't. I mean, well, for a start, we were all making other music in that time, so
Yeah.
that path, that development, you can see it. You don't have to imagine it. We don't have to
Hmm.
imagine it, and it's not like we need to blow off steam or make up for lost time in any
Yeah.
senses. It the band and the records, all the studio records I've done. So this will be four. Well, not really the first McLusky record because that's more a collection of demos recorded in a small studio.
Yeah.
We couldn't record live. It had to be drums, then bass, then guitar. But ever since then, the records have done. So that's another one, two, three, eight records. They're all basically made in the room. The musicians in the room. Occasionally, somebody will bring an idea in. It almost never happens. The McLusky song "Who You Know," I wrote it at home on an acoustic guitar. That's the exception. That is pretty much the exception. Everything is written in the room at volume. It needs the velocity. It needs people looking at each other. The timing of it is as much about the eyes as it is about the actual sound. It's quite a physical. It's quite for a band like us, at least. It's quite a physical process
Mm.
to do that. And the records sound, I think, but for better or worse, like those people at those time in their lives, you know, and
Yeah.
that's what makes it. But yeah, time has passed. You need to be aware of time has passed. Nostalgia has been an important factor, the important factor perhaps in getting people to come to our shows over the last few years.
That might be true, yeah.
And so it's and that's fine on that level. There's nothing
Mhm.
wrong with reminding people about when they had hopes and dreams, you know. But
Now we just have end, right?
those times are gone. Um, but it's important to accept it.
Yeah.
But then for me to fucking blow that out the water, it's like right,
Mm.
we had nostalgia, that was great, but we're a rock band. We're
Mm.
like you know, you can keep your legacy for you know your actual things which require legacies. I'm not sure. Just so much self-importance in that, and even though we take what we do seriously, wearing that kind of self-importance really heavily is just I'm just not interested in. At the end of the day, it's a rock band. We put everything into this thing. It's our dream. We love this as much as well, I certainly. I love my daughter to death, but this record is as important to me the way it exists in the world. Um, and and yeah, it it is it is unapologetically what it is, and it exists despite the nostalgia. However, saying that, somebody doesn't like the new record, just simply don't engage with it. Like, and then you get to have your band who did the records back 20 years ago, and that's fine. Also, you can't
Yeah.
dictate legacies to people, but it's as a band, we're furiously committed to the idea of not taking the thing seriously, if that doesn't sound like too much of a
No,
direct
no, that's
comment.
totally fine. That indirectly also answered my second humorous question. Would you also do a photo like Zappa, pants down, on the toilet, reading a newspaper?
I think by the stage that you're doing that photo, and I'm not sure I know the photo you're referring to.
Frank Zappa?
Oh, Frank Zappa, right. Yeah, I'm the two most annoying people I knew in the world were Frank Zappa fans. Um, so, and I can't help it. There are even football teams I want to see lose because of guys I knew when I was younger. You know, they were fans of teams and they were such dickheads that
Okay,
dickhead
so
in a
you got to give
different
us
tone.
one team at least.
Oh, Ipswich Town. And it's a
Oh,
shame
don't tell
because
that to Ed Sheeran.
no, I
He's
mean,
gonna kick your ass.
my conversations with Ed Sheeran have diminished in both in both duration and quality over the years.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. I think by the stage you're doing photos like that, you're probably part of a mini industry, and
Mm.
there's a sense in which you're generating a lot of publicity. You're a public
Yes.
figure in some senses.
Yes.
The size of band we are, I don't think I'm enough of a public figure to have to
Mm.
debase myself to quite that level. However, I will say I've been dressing up like a dickhead in the videos we've been doing recently, and we're going to be dressing up like dickheads on Sunday for the fourth video. But it's entirely in the spirit of the thing, so it's fine. I think if it was his idea, whatever, if you particularly wanted to sit there, but I don't know. I think the bathroom's a private place myself.
But I figure as much as you would rather stay away from doing such a photo, I guess that you would still answer his question, does humor belong in music? You would probably agree to that, right?
Well, I would say, does humor belong in music? Does humor belong in people?
Mm.
Some people are annoying, they're always fucking cracking jokes or doing puns or whatever.
Mm.
They can be fucking annoying. Humor belongs, and in our band, it's not meant to be worn heavily. And if you want to sell any records, don't wear humor heavily, because it implies certain things. It's like describing music as intelligent.
Mm.
I think people, listeners, whatever, like to come to that conclusion themselves. They
Mm.
don't like to be, oh, this is intelligent band. You're like, what do you mean fucking mean intelligent? What is it going to be? To quote the British comedian Stuart Lee, is it going to be some kind of aggressive lecture? It just gives the, I think intelligence implies a assumed superiority or something. Oh, these guys are going to
Mm.
talk down to you. And
Yeah.
the intention isn't to talk down to anybody. The idea is to do the music, and it's imbued with the personalities of the people.
Yeah.
So humor belongs in music exactly as it belongs in your personality. There's lots of rock bands think that rock music exists in this very dour or serious or macho in some cases way. For us, the band, there's some jokes in between songs. Sometimes, on occasion, it has devolved into a bit of a stand-up set.
Mm.
That's fine if it suits the mood of the room,
Mm.
but you've got to be aware of the balance. And you're always, as a performer, you're always learning, and you're always having different experiences. And you're like, tonight was good, but there was a little bit too much talking, say, or
Mm.
whatever. There's a flow to the right kind of show. And sometimes you get it just right, and sometimes it's just slightly off kilter.
Would you then say that even if you have some fun elements and also other intelligent, non-intelligent elements, is it most important that you don't take yourself too seriously, or that you also don't try to become the center of it all in a way?
Absolutely. Yeah. In a way that there needs to be some consciousness, some deliberation about who you are and what you do, but not too much to the point where you're playing a scripted version of yourself. There's definitely the me that's on stage, or even the me that's talking to you now to a lesser degree
Of course.
is a heightened version of the person I am.
Mhm.
I mean, you're not, for example, you're not watching me look for my keys for 25 minutes, which happens all the time, but that's a very crucial part of who I am. I go between being incredibly mentally focused and ordered and incredibly mentally disordered as well. That doesn't tend to be presented on stage or on a record or in an interview. So you're getting a deliberate public side face, but yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for being the person you are, but also realizing that has effects in the real world. So being
Mhm.
somewhat self-aware, and that obviously extends to being in a band as well. But we are pretty much the idea, again, not that we've ever talked about, is just to be ourselves. That's the thing.
But then are you, sorry for digging that deep, but
No, dig,
are
dig,
you,
dig, dig. It's fine.
are you then also aware of the contradiction of not, first of all, playing in a band that plays shows, that does records, that goes on tours, and at the same time, not trying to be the center of it all?
Um, yeah, I suppose, but it's just very comfortable for me that
Okay.
I see people who, are in very successful bands. And as much as I'd like the money, because money's good, because it helps you to live in society, goods and services and all that stuff, I wouldn't want any of the rest of it. It looks horrible. If I go out to the pub, I don't want to walk in and go, "Hey guys, what's
Yeah,
going
yeah.
on?" I want to sit in the corner and talk about football or whatever. I don't want to have to make statements on things. That'd be
So you don't
horrendous.
want to be Norm who walks into the Cheers bar and everybody's Norm, that
No,
old American sitcom. Yeah, I
no,
can
no, I
understand
don't.
that.
No. Mm.
By the way, which football team? Of course, I have to ask that now that
Well, I'm
you're.
from well, I'm from Newcastle, so it's Newcastle United.
Oh,
So,
so you're one of the lucky ones this year.
well, I would, it was very nice for them to win a thing. It's they've got a pretty good spirit and everything at the minute. There's the huge conflict because essentially being owned by Saudi Arabia isn't fantastic in so many senses. So there, I wouldn't say, yeah, it's a little stained, but it's a victory nonetheless. My wife is calling. I'm just gonna say I can't talk right now because
Um,
her
it's very
time.
interesting. I've
It's her.
heard something similar from Newcastle fans because they
Yeah,
said like, we've been through so much shit, and now once in a while when we're good again, we're gonna take that.
yeah. Well, you can't change. You can't just suddenly change the football team you support. I
Yeah,
mean, you can if you're a Saudi
yeah.
fan.
But
You can.
how serious were you then?
Yeah, well, precisely. It's a part of well, certainly for me, it's a part of my childhood. It's a part
Yeah,
of my upbringing. And it's also, I don't live in the northeast of England anymore. It's kind of this little bond that you've chosen to keep with your past.
yeah,
Obviously the people celebrating being owned by Saudi Arabia or, in the spirit of football banter, that's absolutely horrendous. But the idea that football's just lost its soul is quite the take.
yeah.
And
Because it
if you
lost
look
its
at
soul 50 years ago.
well, yeah, and more. But if you look at the Premiership, you've got teams who are the well, they're not just considered the underdogs; they are the underdogs in a lot of senses. Teams like Brighton, where they're almost quote unquote the good guys in some sense, and their owner is a gambling billionaire. Now, obviously, that doesn't come close in scale to any acts. The seriousness of any acts that the Saudi Arabian state commits, but
Yeah.
still it's a very very relative universe where those guys become the good guys. And as much as sport can do funny things to you if you were brought up with it, it is basically it is just money. Although we have to realize that as a touring rock and roll band, for the most part, you're employed by the alcohol industry, really.
Yeah.
So you have to just cut off these. You have to compartmentalize certain feelings. Otherwise you would go insane and you'd just be lying in the middle of the ground screaming capitalism at the sun.
Yeah, I think it's very hard nowadays to be a successful touring band, not overly successful, but in a way successful touring band, and not give into the capitalism thing. That also indirectly leads me to one question. Andy, looking at some of the lyrics or words that you have been singing on records and also on this one, I sometimes have a feeling as if there is a certain, maybe subconscious capitalism critique in there. Like, is McLusky an anti-capitalist band in a way?
Yeah, in a way, sure. Not on any, although. very low energy in the sense of we're not explicitly on any barricades. You try, I think, in your personal life as well as professionally, you try and meet the excesses of capitalism and try not to be too bound in it. But having said that, it's very easy to succumb. It's very easy to order from Amazon, or you'll have a. The thing is, these companies have such huge monopolies that if you want to return something, it's no questions asked just to return the thing. Whereas that small company at the end of your road financially can't cope with 4 returns a week on
Yeah.
an expensive product. So they've got you. The market is captured in a lot of ways. I'd like to eat organically. I'd like to always shop at local businesses, but you simply can't afford to. So what you do is in your daily life and also in your band life, you try and treat people as proper limits, like for us as a band, when we make money, on a show, good money on a show, we'll pay our crew a little bit more, for
Yeah.
example, an amount which is fair. Whereas when we've toured with Future the Left in the past, and the fees we were getting were still decent, but pretty much traveling around with a couple of crew members, a van, hotels every night, we would only be breaking even on like about £1,000 a night. So the crew members would be paid less because everything was based on like that model. The problem is if it's a self-regulating thing where essentially everybody's going to be fairly dealt with in the end. Surely everybody now knows that's nonsense. The rich do get richer, and everybody else, and by the rich you mean the very, very small group of the
Yeah.
rich. It's not like we're talking about 20% of people in a nice estate over there turning their noses up at people who don't have
Um,
those things. The extremity of it is quite the thing. uh but again, we've never sat down and talked about capitalism. There is a song called Spot Culture which was going to be on the album, and the first line of it is, the terror of completing capitalism ruined my lunch. That is the first line of it. Maybe that all would have been a lot more explicit if that song explicitly addressing that had been on the
mm.
record as well.
Will you put it out on a B-side? Because I
Yeah,
know McLusky has always been about singles as well as records.
singles. Yeah, there'll be it's only a couple of songs that we finished recording. We started a lot of songs which then, because of the quite limited time we had to record, that we just fucked off. But we finished two or three which didn't make the record. That's one of the differences from the band now as opposed to then. Back then we would have had time to finish more songs for B-sides, because what happens a lot is we'll write song is a good song, but it's not a McLusky song, even though the parameters of that are never discussed. Some things are naturally, this is a McLusky song. This is a good piece of music. It doesn't sound like a McLusky song. That song would tend to be siphoned off towards B-sides or whatever. So it's not like it's a lower quality of a song. It just doesn't quite fit this,
Mm.
rather nebulous idea of what the band is.
Mm. The band is a lot of things to a lot of people, and I'm not sure whether the name of one of your of the live record that you did a few years ago was intentional. You named the live album that came out on Prescriptions Gateway Band. Are you aware that for several people younger than the two of us, you are indeed the gateway band into the sound of the millennium?
Yeah, absolutely. And it was made. It's you with that title, you're mocking yourself.
Yeah, of
Um,
course you are.
but also it's affectionate, because what's more important than a gateway band on some levels?
That's true.
Without the gateway band, you don't find the other bands. And sometimes a gateway band is an entirely negative implication. The idea is, oh, I was into this band and now I listen to the real stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
Or
yeah.
yeah, and that's the mocking part of it. Or it opened up these other bands, but then you come back to this band as
Hmm.
well. Because
Yeah.
we're not fucking playing around. As much as we love a lot of those bands our band refers to, although I hope not entirely. I hope also our personalities permeate it to not just be some facsimile of those bands. But for me, as much as I love a lot of that music, we fucking stand with that music. You know,
Mhm.
we stand alongside it, and we'll go toe to toe with anybody. So we're playing with the Jesus Lizard in Brussels on the 18th of May. You know, the idea is, as much as they're one of the greatest bands I've ever seen, the plan is to go on stage and fucking wipe the floor with them. You know,
Yeah,
that's
outperform them.
yeah, absolutely. And
Yes.
all the bands on that bill should be going on with that attitude. And that's when you get a chance of magic. It's not I can't understand somebody who'd be a rock musician, you know, where the whole thing is the drive and the velocity,
Mm.
and to go on stage and go, oh, I hope it's good tonight. You hope it's good. Make it good,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
Make it good.
Manifest it into being good, right?
Yeah, manifest, but also just be good. Like we, I'm a big believer in what rock music is.
Hmm.
I haven't always been the case. That hasn't always been the case. I was just drawn to rock music when I was younger, and I didn't really have any thoughts about it. It was something you just did almost instinctively. But
Hmm.
the longer I've been in rock music, the beliefs in a being yourself, within the laws of the land, of course. It doesn't mean you can just take your trousers off at any particular time. And there's a few,
Unless you're a Red Hot Chili Peppers.
unless you're well, especially if you're Red Hot Chili Peppers, should be the line. But I love what it is in those moments. I love you know the way it can could just connect these dots in your brain, and it can define these times of your life, and it can be everything in those moments. And
Yeah.
for me, but that to me extends to, I don't like to over rehearse when I'm playing that song. I don't want to be robotically playing that song.
Hmm.
It's rock music. For
Hmm.
me, some of the new songs, I will be desperately trying to remember verses, what they are, just before they come up to me. And that's what makes it exciting. Like it's the rawness is what makes for me the rock and roll that I
Hmm.
like exciting. If you over rehearse, you sound, you
Like
know,
Dream Theater.
well, I don't even know what that sounds like, but
Don't worry.
I can
Tool.
imagine it sound, yeah, well, I know what that sounds like, but that's not for me. Again, there's obviously on lots of proper musicians love the feel and the throb of Tool or whatever.
Yeah.
It just ain't for me. I'm more about, things exploding. Whereas with Tool, somebody lit that fuse, and it's quite away from the abandoned mine yet. It's not quite exploding.
I think that there was a time when it was a really important band, but nowadays they're just like a caricature of themselves. Um, what is interesting is also, apart from the anti-capitalist thing, you also sometimes show that you do not agree with authorities all the time, or that you hate the police, for example.
Ah, well, no, you see, that song's called Hate the Polis. You see,
Oh, like the city?
The polis is the city, the
Yeah.
people, yeah. And the thing, that's why the song was called that, so people would make that mistake. Because polis would be a slang term in Britain for police as well.
Yeah.
So we're playing on all those notions. For me, I mean, I'm a 50-year-old man. My
Not looking a
interaction.
day younger than 51.
Well, thank you so much, sir. That's very kind. But my interactions with the police as a younger man were not positive.
Yeah.
They were not positive, and apart from smoking a bit of weed in my life, I'm not a break the rules kind of guy. I'm essentially a fearful individual who, unless I'm on stage or writing songs, I obey the rules. I don't want to put anybody out. I'm that kind of guy. And it's as much fear as respect for other people, but both of those things can work in tandem to create a decent person. I think I had one incident where I got really, really badly beaten up, and that was, even dealing with the police afterwards was horrendous. I once had all my stuff stolen from a flat share I was in. That was a horrendous experience. I once nearly got arrested just for walking down a road. That was horrendous. However, I still believe there is a role for a reconditioned
Yeah.
police force in the world, whether that's just as a deterrent. I think abolish the police people have lost their minds. Um,
Yeah,
but
because what happens if we do?
well, but for me, the police, I mean, essentially, I know people in the police. The police are essentially 80% of their job is as social work, right? So this is the social work, or when we actually see the police, they're usually just protecting the institutions of state or somebody's, a very rich person's property. That again, this should not be the role for the police. This should be the role for private security teams. There is definitely a role for the police in this world. I'm not sure what that is. However, that's not what the song's about. The song is about haters, obviously. People who hate on the internet, but I can't criticize those people. I vocally disliked stuff for years. So the way to deal with things like that is just to slightly detach yourself from them. But also I applaud it in the sense that it does become an identity. Hate the people, hate the people of the city. Um, yeah, I really like that song. I mean, again, it's one of our songs which basically started as a joke, like as a fall or a pavement cover. But it just ends up just achieving a personality entirely of its own.
And it's also the longest track on the record and that is
Oh, is
something
it?
that I
Right.
really found amazing. It's the longest song on the record with 3 minutes 38 seconds.
Wow. Well, but that includes about 15 minutes of just drumsticks falling around at the end, and then I think the
Yeah,
sound of the final sound on the record, I think, is Jack getting up off his stool.
could
That
be.
is the that
Yeah.
is that is that. But yeah, I'm very fond of that song. Certainly not in our initial shows, but we're gonna hope to play it live. It's good for a McLusky show, even though quieter songs certainly aren't the focus and never will be. There's we until recently we opened with the song "Fuck This Band" from Do Dallas, and we'd
Yeah.
always play "She Will Only Bring You Happiness" somewhere in the middle, and those two songs go down very well. And I think people do appreciate the slight pause in the volume for a little while. But they
Yeah.
go down. They go down very well. I would hope. I would hope certainly in terms of people who really like the band that we're not a one-dimensional band to those people.
Yeah, and I think there are a few of those moments on the new record where it's not always just full throttle, but also, like a
It is.
little slower. I definitely like that.
I think.
Um,
I think with McLusky, when I've heard people talk about it, sometimes you could think about it as a punk band, which was never the design, and I don't think the reality of it. There are some fast, straight ahead songs, but
yeah,
most of the songs like have a strut to them, like a groove, as opposed to just being these flat out punk songs. It's nice to change gears sometimes.
yeah. To me, McLusky has always been a lot more about the rhythm section than. Sorry to say it to the guitar
No, no,
player,
it,
but
it, it
but it
absolutely
it,
is.
it very always was more about the rhythm section than the guitarist
Mm,
or the guitar riffs. Let's put it like that,
mm.
which is something that you of course share with other bands. Like if we think of Jesus Lizard, if we think of Shellac, if we think of Drive Like Jehu, very often for those bands, it's more about the rhythm section than it is about the riff itself.
Mm.
And that again shows, like it's not about an individual in McCluskey.
No. I mean, it's colored by the individuals, and it's probably more colored by me because of the lyrical input and all that stuff.
Exactly.
But ultimately, none of the McCluskey records, whether that's the early ones or this one, would sound the same if any band member was different. It's
Yeah.
very, very important. Jack has a certain way of playing, quite a lyrical way of playing. He's quite a tom heavy drummer.
Mhm.
But I mean, he's an exceptional musician. He really is. And Damien is, I mean, Damien plays everything. Well, he plays right-handed bass upside down because he's left-handed, amongst other things. But he can play like any instrument. But I think you can hear to me at least, I can when I listen to the record, which I've tried not to do so much after finishing it because I don't want to sicken myself of it. I don't want to spoil the experience,
Yeah.
but I can hear everybody. I can hear the room. I can visualize the place we were when we recorded it. I can the memories are there, but also the people are very much there on that record. Yeah, dickheads and all.
Dickheads of the World Unite.
Mm.
But one of the few more questions because before we come to the end is McLusky is now, you are the only remaining founding member of McLusky,
Correct. Yeah.
but I'm sure you would not say that it's your band, right?
No, I wouldn't say it was my band. Sometimes I might border on that opinion, but no, it couldn't exist without other people. I mean,
Hmm.
there's a thread which connects McCluskey and Future the Left. I'm the one who does 98% of the interviews. I do all the fucking admin, you know.
Did you
That's
also
the
write
hard.
the text press?
No, no, but I do, but I do the admin, I answer the emails, I arrange the shows, I do those things. In that way, it's more my band
Hmm.
than artistically. I
Hmm.
guide it artistically. I usually, not always, have the final decision on stuff. It's like with anything, if something has to be pushed through, I'll make a decision. But if somebody feels particularly strongly about a thing, it ain't gonna happen because
Hmm.
it is a band. It wouldn't. It's been my. I think if you were being fair, and I like to be fair to myself, who else are you going to be fair to? Without my effort, without my momentum, the thing wouldn't exist. That
Probably,
that
yeah.
is back then and now that is certainly true. However, musically, artistically, it's a slightly different thing. It is a band first and foremost.
Hmm. You have now mentioned Future of the Left pretty often. The band that you and Jack and I think Julia, was it right, founded
Mm.
after the end of McCluskey. But that band also has not, as far as I know, has not released something in a while. How
Yeah.
much future is left for Future of the Left?
Hopefully a future, but so much of it is to do with the future of his childcare,
Mhm.
working out that stuff. That kind of thing is very
Yeah,
expensive, as anybody with a child who doesn't have a family member living next door knows. That kind of thing
yeah.
is very, very expensive. We did 3 shows towards the back end of last year in London, Bristol, and Cardiff. They were all great. It was a reminder of how much people like that band because again, it hasn't happened for a while, so it's more popular than it ever was.
And then we're
That's
back
the
at nostalgia.
Yeah, we've circled right back in nostalgia. Hello, my old friend. Come in. Would you like a tequila? Um, it, but it was great, and it reminded me how good those songs were. It also, I mean, we hopefully won't talk about any detail, but I've had ear problems over the last few years, and I went into those shows going, "Oh, it'll be all right. Future Left songs are quieter than McCluskey songs." They're absolutely not. It's quite the opposite. The choruses in Future the Left, especially, seem to go. By the way, I'm a fucking chorus, mate. So don't get out of the way. I'm fucking coming through. So it was a bit. The first rehearsal we did, I'm like, wow, these songs are loud. Like,
Yes.
there's a song called How to Spot a Record Company, and the last minute of that, oh my word, it's like being a pig in a wall. It's a proper crazy time. But I'm hoping over the next few years, time, money, health depending, love to do at least one more McCluskey record in a year or two at least, and another Future of the Left record. That's the plan. But getting everybody in the same place at the same time when everybody lives in different cities, people have got kids and people are musicians, so I love them to death, but they're essentially fuckwits. It's myself, yeah, myself
Yeah, yeah.
included, but
I
but
know what you
um yeah, I'm hoping it still is a thing because I'm very proud of everything that happened with that band. And like I say, the shows towards the back end of last year, they were pretty amazing and
mean.
people really enjoyed them. McCluskey is probably 20% more popular. In I see from crowds, from ticket sales and stuff,
Mhm.
20-25%. But I mean, and more people know McCluskey. That's just the way. But there are
Mhm.
people out there who dramatically prefer Future of the Left, and that's great because that's just another side. It's another side to our person. There's a little bit more space. It's probably a bit more playful. Future of the Left.
A little more psychedelic, I would say. Like a little, like psychedelic, not in a musical sense, but in
Yeah.
a sound sense, maybe.
Yeah,
I
well,
don't know.
it's just it's got us without anybody ever sitting down and talking it through. It's got a slightly wider palette.
Mhm.
Would be a way of saying it, though still a narrower palette than most bands, I would suggest. But yeah, I'm hoping it happens, and if it doesn't, and if it
Then it
doesn't,
doesn't.
then it doesn't, and we've just been strangled by
Mhm.
time.
Last question before we come to the infamous quickfire round at the end. One of your track titles was No Covers.
Mhm.
If you could choose to do one cover for example, the Brussels show,
Mm.
which one would it be right now?
I love the Bugsy Malone soundtrack,
Okay.
um, and the song "Bad Guys," which later in the song is "Good Guys."
Mhm.
We could have been anything that we wanted to be. That song, I love that song. I've always loved that song. In mid-period Future to the Left, because the original bass player was a guy called Kelson Matthias, who'd been the singer in a band called Jar Crew. And there was kind of a broken, like honky tonk piano in the studio in Mono Valley where we were recording. And we really wanted to kind of do a cover, but the cover would have just been an impression rather than a cover. I think the best covers are songs which, if they don't reimagine the structure or the lyrics or whatever, certainly maybe give a different sound rather than
Mhm.
just doing the same kind of thing
Mhm.
played by different hands. It didn't work. But that's definitely the song I do, Bad Guys. I just love that song. There's a lot of memories about my mother connected in. I mean, on a basic level, I fucking hate musicals, musical theater, but my mother loved musicals. My mother loved musicals, and so I have a lot of very fond memories attached to particular musicals. But yeah, Bugsy Malone, yeah, yeah, it's difficult for me not to weep a little tear when a song from Bugsy Malone comes on TV or whatever.
By the way, how did it come that the new record's cover is pretty different to the other ones that you had? I mean, like it's, I mean, like from a color palette, it even has some turquoise in it.
Yeah, it does. And I've got to say, I love the way you pronounced turquoise. That is amazing. That has made my day. It was very, very smooth. Um, it just comes from a photo that Damien took. Uh, uh, what's it called? Wookie Hole, which is a pretty shit tourist attraction around Bristol Way. Got to be honest with you. It just worked. I don't know. And it probably is a good thing to differentiate the different eras of the band with like you say, one element of color
Mhm.
as opposed to just this quite bleak looking thing. But yeah, I love the cover actually. The second you sent me the photo, which our designer Michael, who is in Minneapolis, gave a different sheen to, of course, straight away I was like, that's the record. That's just it there. It's just got it looks like it looks like something frozen in time and
Mhm.
waiting for the rapture, waiting for a new life. And I can have all those thoughts without needing to particularly, articulate them. It just works
Mhm.
perfectly. It just goes with the title. It's perfect.
That's what I wanted to say. For me, and here I would like to come back to the beginning. For me, the record has that turquoise lining on the horizon, which I really like. It is still McLusky very much, but I like the little new things.
Yeah,
So
there is a horizon, like you say.
mhm.
There is something on the way. There's the old life and the new life can exist at the same
Yeah.
time. Yeah,
Mhm.
can exist at the same time.
So, Andy, that is the bigger first part of every Veil of Sound interview, but everybody has to go for the infamous quickfire round at the end. I will
Well,
always give you
well,
two alternatives.
you say infamous, but I don't know of it. So
Well, for
give me
everybody who listens to our show,
okay.
I've
All right.
known people who are playing the bullshit bingo with me, so the infamous
Okay.
quickfire round. You will always get two alternatives, and
Okay.
you will have to choose and maybe give a short explanation for your choice.
Okay.
As if my research and memory is correct, the band was founded in Cardiff. I will give you two Cardiff, or not Cardiff, but Welsh bands. Manic Street Preachers versus Super Furry Animals.
Or as they're called in Wales, the super furry animals.
Yeah, but I can't
Um,
do that, so sorry.
yeah, no, good. Sorry, what am I choosing between those bands?
Yes.
To answer
Which?
questions about them,
No, no,
or
just say which one do you prefer? The Manics or the Furries?
I'd have to say the fairies. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Can you explain why?
Uh, I think for me, there's an inverse relationship between the huge venues people play and how much I
Mhm.
don't like their music. It's
Okay.
it's almost a scientific fact, but I think there's a danger to some of the early furry stuff. The latest
That's true.
stuff is it's a little bit wandery to me, some of it, but they're undoubtedly brilliant at what they do. But yeah, I would say the fairies. I mean, people in Wales love the Manics. It's it's almost a religious experience being near Manics fans, and you do have to respect that. But some just I'm not into stadium sounding rock, but
Mhm.
they're nice people and fair play to them. The super fairy animals, yeah, definitely.
That's a good choice because it easily leads me into my next one. The singer of the Furries once sang on Dial Revenge by Mogwai. So I'll give you Mogwai versus Aerogram.
Oh, aerogram.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I remember aerogram. So we're doing Scottish bands there. Aerogram was Scottish,
Now
yeah.
we're doing Scottish bands.
Yeah, let's go aerogram just to mix it up a little bit. Although
Yes.
I do quite like some Mogwai, but I do have two aerogram CDs somewhere downstairs. But I'll go aerogram just because probably they don't get so many votes as well.
They probably don't, right?
Mm.
By the way, if anybody wants to know a little bit more about the new Mogwai album, visit our archives. Back late December, we had an interview with Stuart here on the channel. Let's switch to England and to Bristol, where you are now living. Where in the 90s was this so-called Bristol sound, the trip-hop bands.
Mm.
So I'll give you two trip-hop bands, Massive Attack versus Portishead.
I'll probably go Massive Attack, I think.
That's interesting. That's the first one where I would have guessed your answer wrong. Um, and also cool that you've already mentioned the Jesus Lizard. So I'll give you two iterations of David Yao, Scratch Acid versus the Jesus Lizard.
I have to say the Jesus Lizard
Mm-hmm.
because I've never seen Scratch Acid, so I'm kind of choosing from a field of one. Yeah, but the
Mm-hmm.
Jesus. I mean, one of the best live bands ever
Yeah.
to walk any earth in any dimension.
Even though the singer likes to take off his pants.
Yeah, I think it's
But he
called
leaves on his shorts. We got to
I,
say that for him.
I think it's called the Yao exception. I think.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, so a good song title. I'm going to make a note of it. The Yao
But yeah,
exception.
the Yao exception. Yao
Yeah.
exception versus McLusky syndrome. That should be a new track on the next record.
Sexy.
Um, so I mean, like a lot of rock music, of course, comes from the States, just like Jesus Lizard. I'll give you two Canadian bands.
Oh
Fucked
Lord,
Up, Fucked Up versus Mets.
I have to go Mets.
Again, one band that you can find in our archives, just like Jesus Lizard. Hot Snakes versus Drive Like Jehu. Two times California.
Drive like Jehu.
Okay,
Yeah,
that was fast. That was
yeah.
fast.
I really like Hot Snakes, but it's all very similar sounding.
Hmm.
I
Yeah, and
would
Drive
say
Like Jehu. Yeah.
it has a thing. There's a little more variety in Drive Like Jehu.
Hmm.
I don't like all of Drive Like Jehu's stuff, but that song especially, what's it? Here Come the Roan Plows. That's a great song.
Shellac versus Big Black. Albini.
Shellac.
Mhm.
No
How?
no debate on that. Shellac, easy.
Mhm. Superchunk versus Girls Against Boys.
Girls Against Boys.
Mhm. Sonic Youth versus Pavement.
Pavement.
Okay, good.
My, my
Quicksand. Yeah.
my wife would attack me with a hammer if she heard me say that. But Pavement rather than Sonic Youth. Yeah.
So let's stay in New York. Quicksand versus Rival Schools. Schreifeld's bands.
I don't know either of those bands.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the last one, and I'm pretty sure you know those two. Fugazi versus Minor Threat.
Fugazi.
Mhm. Can you say why?
Well, firstly, it's better. It draws from a wider palette. And I've never, yeah, it's just well, indisputably one of the best bands ever in the history of notes. So, yeah, Fugazi. Yeah, I mean, Minor Threat is like I don't know, it's like the teenage male rage, isn't it?
Yeah.
Manifest,
Yeah.
and then Fugazi is like the adults emerging from the wreckage of it.
That's true. That's definitely true. Andy, thank you for the interview. Thank you for all the detailed answers. And of course, thank you for the new record. Everybody, the record is now, when you're watching this, already out for 2 days. So don't forget to go listen to it. And of course, order it through our friends in Ipecac.
I think by the time this comes out as well, we'll have announced European, continental European shows in October and November as well.
So if you have done that, we will put them right underneath this little video. So everybody, thanks for listening. Andy, thanks for your time, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.